Have you ever finished a phone call or a visit with your adult child and felt strangely tired, not just physically but emotionally worn down? You might even start questioning yourself. Did I say something wrong? Was I too harsh? Am I doing enough? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. For many in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, relationships with grown children can quietly shift over time, becoming more one-sided, emotionally exhausting, or even draining, without you realizing it's happening. These aren't moments of conflict or open disrespect. They're subtle patterns that build up, slowly pulling your energy, peace, and emotional strength. Today, we're going to gently uncover 5 signs your grown children might be draining your energy, silently, unknowingly, and maybe even unintentionally. And most importantly, we'll explore what you can do about it with grace, love, and wisdom. Because you deserve to feel strong, respected, and at peace in this chapter of your life. Let's begin with sign number 1. Every conversation feels like a crisis. Whether it's relationship drama, job stress, financial worries, or emotional ups and downs, your child only seems to reach out when something is wrong. You rarely hear from them just to talk, to laugh, or to check in. Instead, your phone rings and your stomach tightens. You're stepping into the role of therapist, banker, problem solver, or emotional shock absorber again. Maybe you've even rearranged your schedule, stayed up late worrying, or drained your savings to just help one more time. It's not wrong to care. In fact, it's a beautiful part of being a parent. But when care turns into emotional labor that's expected rather than appreciated, it wears you down. Take Lisa, a 68-year-old retired teacher from Ohio, who found herself fielding daily phone calls from her daughter, each filled with stress, complaints, or venting. After months, Lisa realized she wasn't sleeping well, had chest tension, and even started dreading calls. That was the moment she had to ask, is this connection building me up or pulling me down? Sign number 2. You feel guilty for setting boundaries. When you finally say no to something, whether it's babysitting on short notice, lending money, or giving advice, you're not comfortable sharing. Your grown child reacts with frustration, cold silence, or guilt-tripping phrases like, "I guess I can't count on you anymore," or "You've changed." This is emotional manipulation wrapped in familiar words. You start questioning your instincts, feeling selfish for prioritizing your own time, health, or peace. But let me remind you, boundaries are not walls. They are doors that help relationships breathe. Without boundaries, even love becomes a source of pressure. Joe, 72, from Arizona, told his son he couldn't co-sign on a new truck loan. His son didn't speak to him for 2 weeks. Joe wrestled with guilt until a friend said something simple and freeing. "You're not an ATM. You're a father." That shifted everything. Sign number 3. Your house feels more like a help desk. You've become the go-to person for everything: childcare, pet sitting, picking up prescriptions, making calls, researching insurance plans, fixing resumes, and offering a spare room, just for a while, that turns into months. While it's good to be helpful, it's not okay when your generosity becomes assumed, not appreciated. Many 60-plus parents, especially grandparents, are quietly parenting again, without any real choice in the matter, and it's draining. There's a difference between helping and being used. Anna, 65, in Florida, found herself babysitting her grandkids 5 days a week so her daughter could work a second job. She loved the children, but never had time to garden, walk, or even rest. It wasn't until she fell ill that she realized she hadn't been putting herself first for years. That wake-up call changed how she navigated future help. Sign number 4. You feel invisible in the relationship. Conversations revolve around their problems, their schedules, their kids. Your stories get cut off. Your needs go unnoticed. And when you try to share something personal, like a medical concern, a memory, or even a new interest, it gets brushed aside. You start to feel like you're only there to listen, never to be heard. That emotional imbalance adds up. Love should flow both ways. Communication is more than just words. It's attention, care, and curiosity. And when that fades, the silence starts to hurt. Bob, 74 in Michigan, said he stopped telling his daughter about his doctor visits because she never really listened anyway. His voice had become background noise in her busy life. That's not connection, it's quiet disconnection, and it's heartbreaking. Sign number 5. You're afraid to speak honestly. You walk on eggshells, afraid that saying the wrong thing will trigger a cold response, a shutdown, or worse, distance. So you keep quiet. You avoid topics. You nod along. You silence your truth. But silence isn't peace. It's suppression. And over time, that inner tension builds into stress, anxiety, even illness. Honest love should allow space for disagreement, for correction, for truth spoken in gentleness. When that space is gone, you lose the freedom to be yourself around your own children. Gloria, 69, in Texas, stopped telling her son she didn't like how he joked about her memory. She laughed it off. But inside, it hurt. We must remember, respect doesn't end when our children grow up. If anything, it should grow stronger. Healing doesn't always begin with a confrontation. Often it begins with awareness. When you realize that your exhaustion, your tension, or your sadness may be linked to unbalanced emotional dynamics with your grown children, you can take your first gentle step toward change. It's not about blame. It's about balance. Most adult children are not intentionally draining you. In fact, many may not even realize they're doing it. But if you don't say anything, if you don't advocate for yourself, if you continue to silence your needs, the pattern never shifts. And healing, for both of you, never begins. What does healing look like at 60, 70, or 80? It looks like self-respect, clear communication, and giving yourself permission to rest without guilt. Let's begin with something simple yet powerful. Learning to say no without explaining your entire life story. Saying no is not selfish. It's healthy. You don't have to justify every boundary you place. A simple, "I'm not able to do that today, but I love you," is enough. You don't owe anyone more than that. If a boundary is clear, kind, and consistent, the right people will learn to honor it. And if your children push back, it's not your job to fix their discomfort. It's your job to stay true to what brings you peace. Remember, boundaries don't hurt relationships, they protect them. Without boundaries, resentment grows. With boundaries, trust grows. Next, try changing the rhythm of your conversations. If every phone call or visit begins with a flood of their stress or drama, gently redirect the tone. Start the call by asking something uplifting. Share a funny memory. Talk about something beautiful you saw that day. You are allowed to protect the emotional tone of your own home. If your adult children only bring chaos, it's okay to say, "Let's talk later when things feel calmer." You are not their therapist, and your emotional well-being is not a dumping ground. Conversations should be uplifting, two-sided, and life-giving whenever possible. Let's talk about reclaiming your calendar. Time is the most precious gift you have, especially in this season of life. It's not selfish to want time for hobbies, for walking in the garden, for journaling, for coffee with a friend, or simply to sit and do nothing at all. If your days are filled with obligations that leave you drained, It's time to take a step back. Look at your week. Where are your moments? If your schedule is filled with commitments that weren't freely chosen, it's time to make new choices. You don't need permission to rest. You don't need permission to say, "I've done enough today." Another powerful practice? Let them feel the weight of their own choices. That's how they grow. Love isn't rescuing every time. Love is letting them learn. If your child is struggling with poor money habits, it's not your job to keep covering for them. If your child continues to make relationship mistakes, it's not your job to fix it. You can pray, you can encourage, but you don't need to carry what isn't yours. One mother, named Helen, shared that she stopped enabling her 34-year-old son by cutting off weekly cash loans that never got paid back. At first, he was angry, but 2 months later, he took a part-time job, started paying off debt, and slowly began taking responsibility for his own life. Her boundary was his wake-up call. Emotional healing also involves grief. Sometimes we have to grieve the fantasy of what we thought the parent-child relationship would look like at this stage. You might have pictured family dinners, warm phone calls, vacations with the grandkids. But instead, there's distance, or tension, or silence. That's hard. It's okay to feel that sadness. You're allowed to grieve the unmet expectations. And still, you can begin building something new. Maybe not perfect, but honest. Relationships evolve. Love can look different in each chapter, but it doesn't have to disappear. What matters most is that you feel seen, heard, and valued. One woman shared that after her husband passed, her daughter called only when she needed something, never to ask how she was coping with the grief. At first, she stayed silent, but one day she said, "I love hearing from you. I'd also love if we could talk just to talk so I don't always feel like I'm being needed but also known." That simple truth opened the door to change. Sometimes your children just need a mirror to see what they've missed, and sometimes they won't change right away. But you will begin to feel lighter just by speaking up. You may also want to consider building community outside of your family. This is especially important if your children live far away, are emotionally distant, or simply don't engage as often as you'd like. Your value doesn't come from being needed. It comes from being known, being present, being yourself. Whether it's through a church group, a walking club, a volunteer organization, or even an online circle of 60-plus friends, you deserve connection that lifts you up, not wears you down. In fact, studies show that older adults with strong social ties outside of immediate family are healthier, live longer, and report greater happiness. It's not too late to build that circle. Finally, here's a gentle but firm truth. You are not here to be constantly drained. You are here to live, to breathe, to enjoy, to rediscover joy, and to walk into this chapter with full awareness of your worth. The world often forgets how strong and wise the 60-plus generation is, but not here. In this space, we honor you. Now that we've recognized the signs, taken steps toward healing, and allowed ourselves to grieve what's been heavy, we reach the part that matters most. How do we restore joy? How do we keep loving our grown children without losing ourselves in the process? How do we age not with resentment, but with dignity and peace? The answer isn't one size fits all, but it starts with you choosing to show up for yourself first. Yes, you've spent a lifetime showing up for others. You've been the helper, the fixer, the provider, the soft place to land. But this chapter of your life, your 60-plus, your golden years, isn't just about giving. It's about becoming more peaceful, more rooted, more joyful, and more free. Restoring love with your grown children begins with communication that reflects both compassion and courage. That means you express your truth without blame. You say things like, "I want to stay connected with you, but I need us to find a better balance," or, "I feel tired when our time together is always about stress. I'd love to share joy with you too." These aren't confrontations. These are invitations to deeper connection. When you speak with warmth and clarity, you create a safe space for growth. They may not respond perfectly, but they'll begin to see you, not just as mom or dad, but as a whole person with needs, desires, and emotions too. It's also important to celebrate your own life, not just theirs. Too many parents wait for a call that doesn't come or live only for holidays and family gatherings. But your life is happening right now. Fill your calendar with things that light you up: a morning walk, a new hobby, a poetry group, a book you finally have time to read, or that trip you've been postponing. Celebrate birthdays with new rituals. Mark anniversaries with grace. Don't let your joy be dependent on your children's availability. Create a life so full that when they do call or visit, they're stepping into your world, not pulling you out of it. You also have the power to redefine what support looks like. Sometimes love doesn't mean giving money. It means offering wisdom. Sometimes love doesn't mean saying yes. It means knowing when to say, "You can figure this out. I believe in you." Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your children is to let them experience growth through discomfort. And the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to allow space. Space to breathe. Space to rest. Space to just be. If you found yourself wondering, "Why don't they call more?" or "Why do I feel so tired after being with them?" please know that your feelings are valid. It's not about turning away from your family. It's about turning back to yourself. It's about restoring emotional balance so you don't carry what doesn't belong to you. It's about stepping out of guilt and into grace. Your role as a parent has evolved. You are no longer raising them. You're releasing them. Not releasing love, but releasing responsibility. You are not required to solve every problem. You are not required to fill every silence. You are not responsible for their happiness. What you are responsible for now is your own peace. There's a beautiful saying, "You can't pour from an empty cup." That means taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred. When you honor your needs, you teach others to do the same. When you live with joy, you give your children something far more powerful than help. You give them hope. You show them what it looks like to grow older with grace, to love with boundaries, and to live with freedom. You may still have moments of hurt. That's okay. Loving someone doesn't mean their behavior never bothers you, but love without truth isn't real love, it's performance. And you weren't born to perform. You were born to live honestly, to give deeply, and to rest freely. If your adult child cannot yet see how their words or habits affect you, give it time. People grow when they are loved firmly, not just gently. You don't need to be angry to be honest. You don't need to be cold to be clear. You just need to honor the truth and let it speak for itself. And as you begin to walk in this clarity, remember, you're never alone. There are thousands of others in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, men and women who feel the same silent fatigue, the same unspoken guilt, the same longing to be seen again, not just as mom or dad, but as a full human being with stories, feelings, and a beautiful soul. You are not invisible here. You are deeply valued. At the 60-plus chapter, we believe your story doesn't end. It evolves. Every wrinkle, every scar, every quiet victory you've lived through is a sentence in a chapter that deserves to be read, heard, and honored. You've spent a lifetime loving others. Now, it's time to love yourself too. Protect your energy. Reclaim your space. And live each day knowing you have nothing to prove, only peace to pursue. If this message touched your heart, help us grow the 60+ chapter community by sharing this video with someone who needs to hear it, whether it's a friend, a parent, or a child. Your voice matters. Subscribe so we can continue walking together through every beautiful, honest, and empowering chapter of life. Because this isn't the end. This is where real life begins. With truth, with healing, and with you.